Hi, my name is Annie. I like to watch movies and TV, and I draw a lot. This is Couch Potato Artist. Lisa Hanawalt. Unabashedly, unashamedly, one of my just straight up role models. This woman, let me tell you, she was the production designer and a producer on BoJack Horseman, and I would argue that she was largely responsible for developing the main aesthetic of the show, and I think you can see that really clearly in her graphic novels as well, which, by the way, she has some graphic novels. You should also check those out. She is also the creator of the unfortunately canceled, tragically amazing Tuca and Bertie, and she is also on a podcast called Baby Geniuses, which is hilarious and I listen to a lot when I draw. Now, I first became aware of Lisa Hanawalt through her XOXO Festival Talk, which I cannot stress enough that you need to check out, especially if you are a creative person. I think that you would get a lot out of it. And upon realizing that she was involved in all these other projects, I just had to consume every interview and video involving her because I just think that she is really inspiring. I think that her work came to me at a time that was also really important to me personally. I became aware of her and all of the projects that she was involved in when I was kind of in transition with some of my creative projects. I'd been spending 2 years on a book that I'd only produced 30 pages for, which was about 15 pages a year. And you can check out the preview on my Behance portfolio if you would like. But while there are a lot of things I still like about that story, and I think maybe I could revisit it, for the most part, just the idea that I knew I needed another draft and I'd already spent all this time on these pages was so overwhelming, and I felt so much guilt in wanting to move on. But once I decided that I needed to, it was really liberating, and I was happy to cut my losses, take what I learned from it, and move on to a project that I am now really happy to be working on. Something I realized was that I was being a little bit of a coward in my storytelling, and I wasn't really aware of that until both Lisa and also my sister. Both of my sisters are, sorry Lisa, my biggest role models, just because they're so cool in their own ways and so passionate about what they do. My oldest sister is a writer, and the new book that she'd been working on, I was really surprised and wowed by how personal it was. But also seeing what Lisa was doing, especially with Tuca and Bertie, really made me confront the fact that I needed to be more vulnerable in the stories that I was telling. And with Tuca and Bertie, I realized that it is not only okay, but a good thing to embrace a uniquely female voice. This was something that I always kind of avoided because I don't like when stories gain notoriety based on the creator. Like, I don't want someone to read my stories just because they want to support me as a girl. You know what I mean? I want someone to read my stories because they're good stories. But what I realized is that I was kind of bringing myself down with those insecurities. And what I needed to do was just tell a story from the heart. And the fact that it would probably be really relatable to a female perspective was just incidental, and that I needed to be okay with that. So learning to embrace that through my role models was really powerful, and I don't think I could ever go back. I don't think at this point I could tell a story just for fun. I think that while my stories, I hope, are kind of funny and dark and weird, I know that they probably do read as personal, and that's what I'm going to try to strive for. And it does scare me to be so out there just because you don't want people to assume like that certain things are about you. But at the same time, I mean, they do say, write what you know, and you have to be brave in that way. Otherwise, your stories are not going to be emotionally resonant. I have no idea if my stories are actually going to work that way, but I do know that that is a goal of mine, and I hope that I can achieve that effect. And I think that having creators like this out there and speaking their truths empowers other creators to do the same. Now that I went on this whole personal journey with you, I do want to speak to some of Lisa's creations in particular. I think what is really special about Lisa is that she does perfectly combine that ultra silly perspective with that ultra vulnerable and bravely emotional perspective. Especially a lot of her side comics, like she had this whole career out of just making illustrated movie reviews, and they're hilarious and silly and weird. They remind me a lot of like the work of Kate Beaton, for example. And at the same time, she is really willing to deal with dark stuff in her work, whether that be speaking candidly about her own life in the podcast, whether that be alluding to societal issues in BoJack Horseman and Tuca and Bertie, or in her own graphic novels as well. That's something that I really admire about her. BoJack has been one of those shows that I think has transformed a lot of its audience. It really plays to the strengths of animation, and I think Tuca and Bertie even more so. If you like BoJack Horseman and you haven't watched Tuca and Bertie, please do. I think that even if it doesn't end up being your cup of tea, give it a try. It is, and Lisa says this in her interviews as well, it is much more playing to cartoon logic. And so it's very silly and over the top, even when compared to BoJack Horseman, which can also be very silly and over the top, but is in a way much more grounded in the real world of Hollywood and LA culture, and just is framed with animal puns. Tuca and Bertie really plays with fantastical and whimsical tones and storybook type aesthetics, and it also really plays with animation a lot, which BoJack does as well. I think that Tuca and Bertie really sought that out in its first and only, unfortunately, season, especially though, whereas BoJack kind of slowly incorporated it throughout the series. I'm gonna have to do a video on just BoJack at one point, I feel like, though. Both of these shows have made me cry, and not that that's like what I desire all the time, but I think that if something makes you cry, it's doing something right. It's provoking an emotional response, and that's what the goal of writing and creating stories is to resonate with people emotionally. So that's what we need to embrace as creators. And if we just want to write cool stories, you're not going to connect with people. You need to be vulnerable. That's what I have learned. I love that both of those shows in particular can be really silly. I love that BoJack shows that even if you're a broken and flawed person, that you can still try your best to be a good person. And there's many ways that different people are dealing with that aspect of themselves. I love in Tuca and Bertie that we get a celebration of friendship, and we're able to deal with dark subject matter in a way that makes viewers feel seen but not triggered. I think that that is a difficult line to walk. And I love that both of them have really fun and silly cartoony styles that play with the medium of animation. And I'm just so excited to follow her career. And if she sees this, I'm going to be kind of embarrassed, but also really happy. And I just can't stress enough that she and all that she does is really inspiring. And I just think that if you are someone who enjoys animation, comics, vulnerable storytelling, over-the-top silly humor that is totally unashamed of how silly it is, that you need to check out everything she does as well. I am just a big old fan, and I think everyone else should be a fan too. Anyway, so this was kind of a unique episode in the sense that I talked about a creator and the different projects that they do. But if you have a specific recommendation for a certain TV show or movie, please let me know in the comments below. And I will see y'all next time. Bye.